welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. Pretty miserable David67 after what I think is Celtic's worst performance by far this season. Pathetic, gutless, no passion, no fire, no ability to pass, cross, defend. Absolutely zero coming from Rodgers in terms of actually getting the players fired up, motivated, getting their confidence back. Absolutely nothing from Carter Vickers, McGregor, Schmeichel, all the supposed leaders on the pitch. And Celtic well beaten by Dundee, who played for each other, played for the team, played for their badge, played for their manager. They were given a good plan by Stephen Presley how to outwit Celtic's basic, predictable tactics and formation that they use every single game without fail. Celtic had no ideas, no creativity, no imagination to break down Dundee's defensive tactics. They had no idea how to stop Dundee on the counter-attack. They defended badly at free kicks, badly at long throws, badly at corner kicks. And Celtic 2-0 loss and absolutely rubbish. And the question is, can it get any worse? And certainly Brendan Rodgers doesn't seem to have sorry, I was going to swear there, doesn't have a clue as to how to change it. And in essence, he's had this squad pretty much since the very start of September. We can say that the transfer window, the recruitment, etc., wasn't as good as it should have been. However, we did have a team that started the game with 7 players who were playing international football last week. 10 of the starting 11 have played international football in 2025. The 11th is Callum McGregor, who would still be in Scotland's squad had he not chosen to retire early from international football. We had players with international experience on the bench, and possibly Celtic's 2 best informed players this season so far, Colby Donovan and Marcello Saraci, were on the bench but unused subs. And we brought on players who are struggling for confidence, struggling for good form, or just starting to try and establish themselves in the team. It was a complete and utter total disaster. So in the video, we're going to have a wee look at a few of the key incidents, some of the Celtic misses, the Dundee goals, some stats, some ratings for the players, and some stats also on passing, and as we go through, lots of other thoughts. So game started with yet another very disruptive protest from the Celtic fans. Took 4 minutes to clear the pitch of all the balls and tennis balls and goodness knows what was thrown onto the pitch. I think it completely disrupted any possibility of Celtic making a fast, confident start. Meant all the Celtic players had to clear the balls off, along with a couple Dundee players and lots of Dundee ground staff. I think it killed all the momentum, killed any possibility of Celtic having got warmed up and fired up in the team huddle, starting the game well. And Celtic pretty much didn't show any passion, fire, aggression throughout the whole game, and there didn't seem to be very much other than booing and chanting and sack the board chants coming from the fans. Not much support, not much cheering on the players, lots of discouragement, etc. to the players. However, the players are all big boys. Rodgers is a big boy. They can all look after themselves, and they didn't show any fire, any aggression, any passion, any desire to play for the shirt or play for the badge, and it was absolutely awful. Anyway, my ranting is over. On to the actual game. Celtic started very poorly. Dundee had a couple of nice chances. They then forced a corner. Terrible defending by Liam Scales in the middle of the box that allowed Robertson a free header to score in the 18th minute. Maybe Kasper Schmeichel could have taken better control of his box. He was kind of boxed in by a couple of Dundee players on the line. Celtic's defence for that corner was terrible, but especially Liam Scales, who completely let Robertson free in the box. Celtic almost hit back straight away. Lovely ball over the top by Hatate. Kieran Tierney completely free. Had even time to take his time, but managed to skew the ball past the post. If he hit the ball with his right foot, I think he almost certainly would have scored. Hitting with his left foot did slightly change the angle, but still was a chance that any professional footballer should be scoring 19 times out of 20. Unfortunately, this was the 20th time of that, 20 times for Tierney. Dundee had another couple of wee chances. Kasper Schmeichel made a nice save. Then Benjamin Negrin again released into the box, tons of space, but managed to trip and fall over his feet, and the chance got lost. Then awful defending by Liam Scales on the left side of our defence. He was turned inside, outside by the Dundee wide player Congreve, who then knocked the ball into the box. The ball then took a couple of deflections and bobbles and then collided off Carter Vickers to go into the goal for an own goal. 1 minute into added time at half time. 1 minute into added time, the end of the first half. Half time, Rodgers changed the team into a 3-5-2, reportedly, supposedly, but Celtic players had absolutely no idea how to use the extra player in midfield. They certainly had no idea of how to use two strikers up front. And Kenny and Iheanacho seemed to be complete strangers, and I can scarcely remember the two of them in any way linking up, interacting, or helping each other out. And actually, the two subs, Forrest and Kenny, were so useless and anonymous, it would have been better just not to have bothered having them on the pitch, because they were just a complete and utter total waste of space. Celtic did actually have a few chances in the second half. There was a good shot by Rio Hatate, left-footed from the edge of the box, that just missed the post. Kelechi Iheanacho had a more difficult chance at the back post in the 63rd minute. The goalkeeper managed to block out, and then Iheanacho, completely free in the box on the edge of the 6-yard box, took a terrible touch, and then his shot got blocked by a defender. Carter Vickers' poor header over the bar from a very good cross. Then there was the penalty overturn, and it looked like a convincing penalty on first viewing live. However, the ball did unfortunately hit off the Dundee defender's face, and so it correctly was disallowed as a penalty. Then Rio Hatate, a wee bit unlucky not to score. Good shot into the corner in the 77th minute that the Dundee defender managed to deflect with his bottom. Another poor shot by Kelechi Iheanacho in good space in the box in the 82nd. Possibly Celtic's best nearest chance for scoring, other than the deflected Hatate shot, was 90 minutes plus 1 added minute, with Mikael Ungsbalakusha hitting a nice shot from the edge of the box that was well tipped over the bar by the Dundee goalkeeper. Another poor header by Kelechi Iheanacho, completely free in the box from a Kieran Tierney cross. And then a terrible, terrible header by Johnny Kenny 5 minutes into added time from a lovely direct free kick from Arnie Engels. So Celtic did have lots of chances, and no real good chances. Possibly the two best chances Celtic actually had it were in the first half, when Tierney missed a sitter and Negrin fell over himself. Second half, Iheanacho, a couple of terrible misses, and some brilliant defending by Dundee to snuff out 3 or 4 other chances. We'll move on to the stats for the game. Stats show Celtic had tons and tons of possession, but couldn't use that tons and tons of possession for anything that creative or dangerous. Possession was 82 to Celtic, 18 for Dundee. Shots were 23 for Celtic, 10 for Dundee. Celtic had 3 on targets, 7 blocked and 13 off target. Dundee, 2 shots on target, 1 blocked and 7 off targets. Celtic had 48 touches in the box to Dundee's 15. So again, Celtic useless when they got up the ball into the box. 2 saves for the Dundee goalkeeper, which is pretty awful given the fact we had 23 shots towards his goal. Just 1 save for Kasper Schmeichel. And stats for passing, pretty awful. 700 passes for Celtic. Accuracy was very good at 88.9. However, 85 back passes, which was 12% of passes. Just 28% of passes were forward passes, 119. And an astonishing 60% of passes, which was 416 passes, were sideways lateral passes. So pretty much the same as Celtic have been all season, but even worse. In contrast, Dundee had 65% of their passes were forward passes. That was 98 out of 151, and just 11% backwards and 24% lateral. So I think thereby hangs a tale. When Dundee got the ball, they got the ball forward, they got it into the danger area, they moved the ball quickly from defence to attack. Celtic plodded and plodded and plodded, and the ball never got properly into the attacking zone. And when they did, they were crowded out by an extremely well marshalled Dundee defence. As I said, Stephen Presley must have been thinking, well, I'll just develop this tactic. If it works, it works. Surely Brendan Rodgers will bring a different plan, a different formation, different ideas, because he knows how I'm going to set up. However, Rodgers played right into Stephen Presley's hands, and he had absolutely no way of changing it. And it was a completely useless performance from Brendan Rodgers, so I've given him 2 out of 10. His substitutions were terrible. Kenny and Forrest may as well not have been on the pitch. McCowan equally were rubbish when he came on the pitch. Balikwisha, 1 or 2 nice touches, 1 or 2 nice runs. He at least did try and beat his fullback, but was often getting doubled and triple teamed. If he did beat the first person, he did have that nice shot. In added time, Arnie Engels came on 81 minutes, and I think he actually looked one of Celtic's better players. A couple of nice deliveries into the box, nice delivered free kick into the box, and he certainly could have and should have been on the pitch much earlier in the game, given how awful Kenny, Forrest, and McCowan were. Now, coming to the player ratings, I've given Kasper Schmeichel 5 out of 10. I think there is an argument to say he could have done better for both the goals, although I wouldn't really blame him for either. He did actually try and get the ball quickly out of his box with throwouts, kickouts, and rollouts and by kicks. And his distribution was nice and accurate throughout the game. So 5 for Kasper Schmeichel, and that is actually the highest rating for any Celtic player. I've given Ralston 3 out of 10. His defending was poor, his distribution was poor, his passing was poor, his ability to get forward was poor, and quite why Colby Donovan or Alistair Johnson weren't playing, I don't know, because Ralston, of the 3 fullbacks Celtic have on the right-hand side, is clearly by far the worst, and the one of the 3 who's in the poorest form. Carter Vickers I've given 4 for. I thought he actually handled Simon Murray quite well. His defending was generally okay, and it was Liam Scales that let him down. He was unfortunate to give away an own goal, but I wouldn't really blame him for that. His passing was the usual Carter Vickers passing these days. Short passes, slow passes, backward passes, sideways passes, and rarely did he ever deliver any kind of pass with pace or creativity or imagination. Similarly, Liam Scales' passing was absolutely awful, as it practically every game is awful. Some terrible passes where he actually kicked the ball out of play rather than anywhere near his teammates. His defending was atrocious. It was his man that scored the first goal from the corner with the header. He was turned inside-outside by the Dundee wide player Congreve in the lead up to the second goal, and the whole game was littered with tons and tons of Scales mistakes, so 3 for him. Kim Tierney, 4 out of 10. He did make 1 or 2 nice wee runs up the other end of the pitch, 1 or 2 nice balls into the box. He did get himself into the box and should really have scored. His defending was considerably better than Scales and Ralston, and he coped better in the back 3 than the other 2 had done, so 4 for him. McGregor, I've given 2.5 for. I think it's his worst game ever in a Celtic shirt. No leadership, no passing, no passion, no aggression, no getting the players fired up, no shots on goal, no real attempts, no good passes. Absolutely terrible performance by McGregor. Hatate I've given a 4 for. Hatate was actually part of a couple of good shots that nearly scored, a couple of passes, one to Tierney, one to Negrin that nearly created chances. However, in between, there wasn't an awful lot from Hatate, quite a lot of errors from Hatate, so I dropped him back to a 4. Negrin I've given a 3.5 to. He did get himself into the box to nearly score in the 40th minute before he fell down. He had one or two nice passes, one or two nice wee touches out wide, but overall very disappointing. Yang have given a 3-2. He at least did make a few attempts to get past the fullback, which James Forrest never did in the second half. Unfortunately, having got past the fullback on a couple of times, his delivery into the box was blocked out, and he really didn't get himself into the box terribly often to be an extra attacker. And so it wasn't much of a miss when he was taken off at half time. And Kelechi Iheanacho 3, he did get himself into the box for a few goals, a few chances, but his finishing was terrible, and he does seem to be just half a step or a step too slow at the moment. Hopefully that will improve the more game he plays. And Giniecki have given the 4-4. Again, he did try and beat his fullback. He tried try and beat him on the outside or on the inside. Didn't really have the same quality of pass or cross into the box as he usually did, and certainly no attempts to get into the box to score. So 4 for him. In terms of the subs, Kenny and Forrest 2 out of 10. They were both terrible and were basically anonymous on the pitch and scarcely had any contributions in the second half. And every time I've got Forrest's name written down, it's Forrest terrible pass, terrible cross, terrible no pace to get past defender. And Forrest was a complete waste of space, as was Kenny. 2.5 from McCowan. No passes, no creativity, no bite in midfield. He was next to useless, only a wee bit better than Forrest and Kenny. 3.5 for Barlaquist, should I say, one or two nice runs, shot on goal. He at least did try and beat his fullback a few times, although he did fail, unfortunately, because we were getting doubled and treble teamed out wide. And Arnie Engels, 4 out of 10. As I say, he did have a couple of nice deliveries into the box, did show a bit more energy, passion, aggression in midfield, a bit more of an ability to get the ball forward, but still not terribly good. So, kind of in summary, Dundee had a game plan. They executed it 100% brilliantly. They played for their badge, they played for each other, they played for their manager, all the things that Celtic didn't do. Celtic had, in essence, one plan, which is the plan they use for every single game, one formation, which they use for every game. We did change nominally to a 3-5-2, but it was very, very clear that none of the players knew how to use the extra player in midfield. None of the players knew how to use that extra player up front. And it was totally useless and pretty much shows that Celtic are not working on anything on the training pitch except for Rodgers' preset 4-3-3 that he's used all his footballing career, and he shows absolutely no ability to change his plan, change his preset ways, and Celtic have become incredibly slow, stale, and incredibly predictable with absolutely no imagination and no creativity. And Rodgers is going to have to do an awful lot to earn his £3 million a year, and Callum McGregor is going to have to do an incredible amount of work also to get this team's spirit and confidence back anywhere near where it needs to be. And I was actually very hopeful that the seeds of recovery were in the Motherwell game. However, we've gone even further backwards. Hopefully, a big supportive Celtic Park crowd who are 100% behind the players, no stupid protests and disruptions. Maybe that will get Celtic fired up on a nice Celtic European evening against Sturm Graz on Thursday, and that then gets them all full of confidence and spirit for the vital game against Hearts. If we lose that game, we will drop 8 points behind. I don't think the title race would be over, but it certainly would start to get more and more difficult because clearly going 8 points ahead will put Hearts absolutely even more jam-packed full of confidence and make Celtic more and more dispirited. Celtic have come back from poorer positions than this before. Ange Postecoglou had quite a lot of difficulties in his first 6 months, but he turned things around. Rodgers did have some poor spells in his first season back, second time around, and turned things around. So I think there is still hope and expectation that we can turn things around, but it's going to take a tremendous amount of hard work by Rodgers, McGregor, and all of the Celtic coaches and backroom staff. So that finishes things off for today. As always, do feel free to click that subscriber button. If you haven't subscribed already, please do click that like button if you like the video, although It's really quite hard to get enthusiastic about Celtic at the moment. And do pop your thoughts and comments into the comment section. Please do keep the language family friendly. Do please keep the comments and opinions and thoughts respectful and polite, etc., etc. And I will be doing more videos through the week and in preparation for the Sturm Graz game on Thursday. And so until the next video, goodbye and hail, hail.